Hey, everybody. Good evening. Hope everybody's having a good night, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. And we'll get started here in just a minute. But I appreciate everybody being a part of the community, and I appreciate everybody's desire to sort of show up when you can and share your thoughts on the topics that we come up with here. And I think tonight's is a good one. It's a sad one, but it's a good one. And definitely want to give everyone a chance to jump in and sort of help talk about what we're all going through. And I'm going to give an introduction in just a minute, but I just want to give everybody a quick minute to file in here. So, how was your day? Did you have a good day? Get anything fun done? Did you do anything crazy? I did a live stream this morning, and then went out for a little bit to the park and did a video there. I didn't get it edited yet, but I did do a video there in the park, which I'll post soon. And then I'm getting ready for tonight, and then getting ready for some more. It's going to be a busy next few days for me, in a good sense. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? But tomorrow I've got a presentation in the morning that I'll do here for the channel. In the afternoon, I'm being interviewed on a different channel. It won't be live streamed or anything, just recorded, but he's going to send me the link for the recording that I do with him. And then I'll post it here, cross-post it, and you can watch it on my channel or on his, as the case may be, whatever you prefer. And then tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m., I'm interviewing Andrew Jasko, whom I've interviewed a long time ago, and looking forward immensely to having him back. We're going to talk about some stuff relating to religious trauma and some things he's been working on. That's been his focus for years. So very excited to have him back, and then probably do a live stream, where people can call in tomorrow night. But we'll see how tired I get from. If I'm on from 5 to 7 p.m., it may be difficult to jump back on at 8 to 10, but we'll see. But I do want to bring up some good news. I talked before about how Seth Andrews from The Thinking Atheist is interested in coming on, and he's agreed to come on Monday morning. So he'll be on my channel here. I'm very excited. He'll be on the channel at around 10:30 Eastern on Monday morning. So that's exciting. Seth Andrews, the one and only. Monday morning, 10:30. So very excited to have Seth on. Many of you know him. You've watched the Thinking Atheist videos. You've seen him in different presentations, and perhaps you've even seen him, in different settings. But Seth Andrews has done great work for years and years and years on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel, and he's going to be coming on this channel on Monday morning. So I'm very excited. And I'm sort of back to back there. I've got, after Seth Andrews, I've got an interview on Monday, just about an hour after I wrap up with Seth. I have another interview with a wonderful Instagram person. She's doing great work, called Mariah. And then I've got an interview at 4 p.m. on Monday. So again, like an hour break, and then 4 p.m. interview with Ricky Johnson. I did an interview years ago with him and his son together. So just Ricky's coming back, but I'm very glad to have him back. So 3 interviews back to back on Monday, literally back to back to back. And then we'll see if I can again jump on later in the evening for the open mic. But it might be something where I get a little bit too tired, but we'll see. We'll play it by ear. But anyway, good stuff. And another 2 interviews at least on Tuesday. So lots of interviews, lots and lots of good interviews. So appreciate your support for the channel. Appreciate your willingness to bear with me as I finagle how I'm going to do this and change the schedule up. And I did change the topic for tonight. I did have a different topic, but I've decided to switch it. That topic's still on the radar, but I'm going to put it off for about a week or two. I want to rethink through what I want to do with it. I may redo that topic as a poem as opposed to a call-in show. But starting here with a few comments. 2 years out, still dealing with the anxiety every day. Am I really evil? What if I do something bad? Do I want to harm my own kids? It creates an OCD style. Yeah, for sure. Mark Richter, good to see you. Thanks so much for being part of this. Your poem was very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Powerful stuff. I really appreciate your encouragement. Hey, Shell, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in here. Seth on Monday, Whoopi. Yep, that's going to be great. the Seth Andrews. So very honored to have him. I did have, I've had a few people on the channel that I would consider celebrities of a sort in my mind, to me. But he's certainly way up there. And so I'm very, very delighted that he's going to come. So join us for that hour and a half. We'll see how long we can keep him, but look forward to your feedback as well as your questions on Monday morning if you can. And again, also tomorrow night, 5 p.m. I'll do something in the morning as well, but tomorrow night, 5 p.m. If you can't join otherwise, see if you can watch Andrew Jasko. His interview is going to be great. Good stuff. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is a topic. Again, I switched. I know for anyone that was looking for the one about screaming, I decided to push that off. I want to rethink how I want to do that. But I think tonight's topic is just as good, if not better. And I wanted to sort of give an introduction, then I'll give the link here shortly for you to join on StreamYard. But I think there's a point in a lot of our lives when we realize that our body has been saying something to us. And you might not, you might not have the language yet at a certain point for religious trauma to say, I know what this is. You might not be saying this was spiritual abuse or this was chronic shame, fear conditioning, dysregulation of some kind, but your body was sending signals to the extent of all those things. Your chest was tightening, perhaps. Your stomach was dropping as you walked into church. Your jaw got clenched at times. Your sleep perhaps left you or became very fractured. And your sexuality was tangled up in fear. Maybe your shoulders felt tense. This is one of the most haunting things about religious trauma is that it's not just your beliefs in your mind, it's your body. It really does. It gets into your body. It becomes part of your physical posture, part of even your breathing, your digestion, your muscles tense up, you're exhausted, you panic, you might have numbness. Just your body's basically screaming and saying, I'm not safe. I'm really not safe. And because so many of us thought that at the same time that we were supposed to distrust our body, we didn't really listen to it that much. We would just think we should ignore this. Maybe, who knows, maybe it's spiritual warfare, but either way, it's your fault and you should feel guilty for it. Maybe it's your lack of faith. Maybe it's your flesh. The sinful definition is your flesh rebelling. And it's sort of, you're going through distress and your worldview of Christianity is reinterpreting it all for you. And your body's crying for help. And, instead of us asking, why do I feel terrified all the time? Why is my heart racing? Why am I so exhausted? We were asking questions like, am I holy enough? And why can't I feel like I'm surrendered more? And it flips it on its head and it's inverted. And it does damage, a lot of damage. We are being trained and training ourselves to override ourselves, all through in the name of spirituality. We're spiritualizing our problems, our suffering, and you kneel at the altar when in reality, like your body and your nervous system is just screaming for help and relief. Some of us get exposed through, maybe you go to a counselor, a therapist, you read a book, you maybe get on the YouTube channel of a therapist of some kind that's bringing out some really great insights. And you begin to learn about trauma-informed healing. And you begin to turn toward your body, and instead of being suspicious, you begin to respect it and to learn it's not weak. This isn't weakness. This is not rebellion. This is not something I should be scared of. I should be happy that my body's giving me signals. And we learn to start to listen well and to remember and to give ourselves permission to protect ourselves and to say, there's a story here. There's a story here. And maybe my body is just like I could get onto a YouTube channel and tell my story. Maybe my body is struggling to tell a story too. And so I want to sort of explore that a little bit with gentleness. And I want to ask you, when and how did your body alert you to religious trauma? How did that happen? What came up in your life on your radar that said something is wrong? And how did you learn to connect that to religion, as opposed to just saying, well, I'm working a lot, that's why I've got pain in my shoulders, or I've got some worries, so that's why my heart races a little bit. Your body's not the enemy. It is a witness. It is a witness in the court of your worldview, learning whether your worldview is telling you the truth and whether you're listening to it, whether your belief system is truth or not. It is a faithful witness. It is a wounded witness. And your body may have been telling the truth to you for a long time, and a lot of us just were not listening. Your body's trying to survive, and we were not listening. How many of us, if someone says, "How are you doing?" we're just going to naturally say every single time, "I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" That's what we do. Your stomach could be all knotted up. Your jaw could feel locked at times. You might be dealing with insomnia again. You might have tightness all over. But you just say, "I'm fine, thank you." Your digestion could be an issue. Your posture, even your hormones, your appetite, your responses of being startled suddenly. So many ways. I mean, there's dozens more ways, private ways in which you live in your own skin, but you don't feel comfortable there. You're not safe in your own brain. You're not safe in your own emotions. You're not safe in your own skin. So I want to sort of frame it this way. Sometimes your body is the first one to speak up. Sometimes it's like an alarm system that keeps firing and saying, "Ding, ding, 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 we got a problem here." And I think for a lot of us, it was telling us the truth, and we were not ready to hear it. So I've got some things on my mind to share, some ways in which I think all of us tend to fall in these unfortunate events, and some of them I'm going to clarify and say, here's a list of some ways in which this happens. Some of these, and I'll point them out, some of these are ones that I can personally attest to. Not all of them, of course, but some of them. But I do want to invite you, if anybody wants to jump onto the live stream, you're very welcome to. Mark says, "I started getting chronic migraines. I'm autistic, so sensory sensitivity ramped up, and I experienced autistic burnout, only just starting to self-regulate my nervous system." Wow. Yeah, I could definitely believe that. I mean, the chronic migraines is, I relate to that, unfortunately, too much, even to this day. Had to stop work completely. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mark. It's awful. Looks like Shell just came into the studio, so we've got our first caller, our first caller, and we'll again. I've got a lot I can share, so if anyone wants to jump in after Shell, feel free. If not, no pressure, no worries. I've got some things to share, but if you do feel like you'd like to jump in after Shell, please do. We'd love to hear from you, and you're welcome to come in on audio only, which Shell is going to do. You're welcome to come in with video as well, like me. And you're also welcome to just stay in the comments if you prefer to sort of keep it more on the lowdown or anonymous. No worries either way. This is just a conversation among friends. So we appreciate whichever way you want to connect with us. But Shell, I'm going to bring you on here. Hey, Shell, can you hear me okay? I see you're in, but I don't hear your audio, so you may be on mute there. Oh, Shell jumped out and Shell jumped back in. Shell, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. My Wi-Fi is being all over the place again, I guess.
No worries at all. Feel free to do whatever you got to do, but we'll work with whatever whatever grace your technology gives us tonight. But
yeah.
I'm guessing since you jumped in that you have some insights to share about your story. How did your body alert you to religious trauma?
Oh, absolutely. It was pretty much right away. I can't stay on too long because my kiddos are out in the backyard, so I probably only have just like a minute to share, but
No problem.
I noticed right away the panic attacks. So like religion keeps you in this headspace of you're not safe and you're not okay on your own. Like you always have to bring everything back to God, and then as soon as I came to the point where I was like, I know for a fact, like God's not real, like based on, my own personal journey and everything. And I finally admitted to myself, there's no way I believe in God anymore. Suddenly it was like, oh my goodness, I have this whole framework now that's falling apart. And I would kind of like spiral into different thought patterns of like, okay, well, what does this mean? And just as I was trying to figure everything out. And so, yeah, like your sympathetic nervous system, I mean, it's there to keep you safe. So when you feel unsafe, your body reacts. And even when that safety is not real, it's imagined, you still have that same impact where, you know, your palms get clammy and you have trouble breathing, and you know, you just get in that headspace. My heart started racing, all of that stuff. So that happened quite a bit when I first left. And then as time went on, that like happened fewer and further between. But it would always happen when I would start to like think about existential, you know, subjects, and some topic of the religion would get brought up. I would kind of go into that state where my sympathetic nervous system would rev up, like I was preparing for fight or flight, and then I would be exhausted afterwards too, just mentally, physically. So that, like, it was a cycle that kind of went on, and that is why I did decide to get therapy when I left, because I realized this isn't just like some little you know, some little thing here that I've decided to leave the religion, which to the outside world, I feel like it looks like, oh yeah, you just decided to stop going to church. No, it was, you know, a huge thing that my entire psychological framework, my social, my, you know, my community that I leaned on, everything was gone in that instance. So, yeah, it was just a really hard time. And when I did get that therapy, I will say that really, really helped. I got to talk through a lot of my thoughts, and at first the therapist kind of had that same thought, like, you know, it's not, you know, you don't have to think in black and whites, it can be gray. And I'm like, but you don't understand, like, as a fundamentalist, either it's black or it's white, you know what I mean? And then she helped me just learn to, she said, give your thoughts a certain amount of time. Say, I'm going to think about this for this amount of time, and after that I am going to turn it off and I'm going to go do something else. And that actually, for some reason, really helped me, because I could just get lost in these sort of spiraling, you know, it would keep going until I burned myself out, right? Until I crashed. So that was great advice, actually. And then as time went on, that, like I said, it happened fewer and fewer and further between. So, you know, I really don't have a lot of that at all anymore, like every once in a great while. But it's not as bad as it used to be. I've been out 6 years, so.
That's awesome that it's subsided so much. That's really great. That's the goal, right? It's the goal to start to heal and be safe in our own skin. But that's crazy that it happened to you, and that to that extent. I'm so glad that you're doing so much better. And I can definitely ditto some of those things. Do you feel like there's any particular things that stood out to you as the most helpful in terms of just regrounding yourself, or being calmer, or like anything that was just like that really took it to the next level in terms of being as safe as you could in your own skin compared to what you were in during Christianity?
Someone had told me, or maybe I saw it online, that if you ever starting to go into that like panic attack, fight or flight mode, you can put an ice pack on your chest, and it like calms I think it's like the vagus nerve or something. And it would kind of like shock me out of that. You know what I mean? So that was actually a really good strategy. And then just learning as much as I could so that I could feel safe again, so that I could be like 100% sure this wasn't what I believed. The more that I learned and explored other religions and everything, and saw a lot of those parallels, and realized for a fact like it was baloney, it got safer and safer for me. So it didn't happen as often. And just talking it out too. I probably drove my husband nuts and my best friend nuts, like talking about everything. a lot. But yeah, I mean, like you had said the other night, this we come together and we talk about it, and then it has less power over us, and that's totally true. When you can sympathize with different parts of people's journeys, your videos actually really helped me, just seeing a lot of those parallels and how other people saw things that weren't healthy in the religion, or saw things that were untrue, that I had like been gaslit into accepting by my religious community. Um, those were also very helpful. So again, thank you so much
Mm,
for that.
that's awesome. So cool to hear. Well, I know you said you've only got a minute because you're watching your kids, but I did want to make sure that was there anything else on your heart tonight before you have to get back to the beautiful job of parenting?
No, that was it. But yeah, I better get back. I better go check on them because they're out in the backyard playing with their friends. So
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Shel. Always appreciate your time. Could jump on anytime.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thank you. And just a quick note I should mention since we're talking about the body, I'm going to state stuff that's kind of like obvious. We're all adults here, but if you have severe um, chest pain or significant shortness of breath or fainting or anything else that's medical, the goal is not to come to channels like this. Obviously, we're not here for any medical advice. I'm not going to even remotely say that these are the starting point or ending point of your solutions. Anxiety and trauma symptoms could overlap with physical health issues. Certainly, if someone is suicidal, etc., if you're in some kind of emotional distress, your body's doing stuff, go to the hospital or call 911 or 988, depending on where you are and so forth and what the issue is. But there's a lot of reasons to say that sometimes it's not just about getting over trauma slowly by listening to channels like this or going to a therapist. Sometimes you just literally need to go to a doctor. You need to get some medical help. So I hope that we're not seeing this as a diagnosis list. And if you have symptoms that are really serious and persist and are medically concerning, obviously get checked out quick. We would not want you to think of it as something to just slowly attack over years if it's actually a significant issue that you're going to need a doctor for and medicine for. But I think there are some ways in which what we're saying here can be something where it's manageable by way of things like meditation, things like grounding, but doesn't mean that that's the only thing you should think about. So hopefully that's obvious to everyone, but I feel like I need to say it. We don't talk about the body that much here, so I don't add caveats like that, but I did just want to mention that. We're not saying stay away from the doctor. Please go to a doctor if there's issues, especially if they're chronic. But again, if anybody wants to jump in, feel free. The link there is for StreamYard is there. I'm going to go through a few quick thoughts. And again, no pressure. If you can come on audio and or video, feel free. If you want to make a comment, feel free. If you just want to listen, no worries. I think a lot of us would say that sometimes our bodies had religious trauma just by real general tension, muscle tension, tightness, your body's kind of clenched. It's like you're mentally, psychologically bracing for judgment, for exposure. Someone's going to expose your sins. You're going to be corrected. You're going to be punished. But I think in a lot of the contexts where we would feel that, whether it's religious or completely something different, until you have these rare moments where you feel completely safe and at ease, you don't realize like how tense you are. And I would definitely confess to that. I feel like there were many moments of tenseness while I was in Christianity that I just didn't. Just like we talk about with mythology, you don't see it until you see it. You don't see your own body's tenseness until you really see it. But I've heard of some people that have like a jaw clenching kind of thing, or maybe even their teeth are grinding. I don't think I've ever had that, but I've heard about that one. Some people have mentioned headaches and migraines. Mark mentioned that, chronic migraines. And I would absolutely say that that's part of my journey as well. I had a lot of migraines. I would say that mine were probably overlapping with my severe insomnia, but at the same time, you never know. When you're under chronic stress and you're hypervigilant, you have suppressed anger, you have like a overloaded nervous system. It's not a surprise that you have a headache and a migraine. But in terms of mine, it was connected very much with insomnia as well. So where does one start and one begin? Who knows? But looks like we have someone else who joined us. So since no one else is waiting, we're just going to go ahead and jump right in with Mark here. So Mark, I'm going to pop you onto the stage. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tim. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. It's an honor and a privilege. You're Mark Richter, right?
Hey, I've been waiting to talk to you for a little while.
I've seen
Big
your
fan.
name 100 times, but now I see your face. So thank you so much. I appreciate your kindness to the channel, your support.
Awesome.
If you could tell everybody where you're coming from, where you're calling it from, and then feel free to talk about the topic of the night.
Okay. I'm based in North Wales. Yeah, between the sea and the mountains. It's very beautiful.
Nice. Very nice. Well, what can you tell us about how your body alerted you to your religious trauma?
Yeah, it's a flipping journey, isn't it? Your body tells you, because you're trained not to listen to your own instincts. You're constantly indoctrinated into all so much stuff that's not authentic, and you don't know your own body, and you don't listen to your own body, you don't listen to your own feelings. And so I started to get these migraines. Just I would be, and my default response while I was deconstructing was to throw myself more into work because it was meaningful, and as you're losing that sort of context of false meaning that you've grown up in, you're looking for other ways to sort of feel that life, you're in some context that yeah. And so I worked really, really hard, and then I just ended up having a breakdown, really. But it's got its own flavor because it's autistic. So I started to get more and more migraines, and my work was gardening, so it's very physical, and so it wasn't compatible in the end. And it's been about 10 years of being physically quite poorly, and I've had about 5 years of not working, and I finally had an autistic diagnosis at the age of 58, and beginning to realize what a precious thing, that with these biological animals that we are, and how to work with it, which you're just not taught when you're brought up in a Christian context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you mentioned autism, what specifically would you say is unique about autism in terms of how it exacerbates the existing trauma?
Yeah, because the two things, first of all, your nervous system is already more highly tuned in a way. So I have a lot of sensory sensitivities anyway. So I've always been sensitive to bright light, but I've managed it. I was able to work outside for decades, and lived a full and until it all just sort of so there's sensory sensitivities, and then being autistic, you tend to do a lot of things to function within a neurotypical society. So those things are often referred to as masking. You're hiding your quirkiness and your tics, or your whatever. We're all unique, aren't we? And neurodivergent people have all sort of have their own flavor of strangeness, which it depends how you mask. But obviously the whole religious thing causes you to mask your true personality as well, because you're constantly performing, and so that exacts a really high toll neurologically, psychologically, physically. And I would get home and just either just have a sudden, my executive function just go offline. I mean, you can see it starting to happen because I become physically clumsy. I trip over my words. I can't think of nouns. Lots of little signs, but then if you ignore that long enough, then you start to go into a state where you're very tense and anxious, and I don't know in the States whether you have the children's game Buckaroo.
I've not seen it, but that may have just been me.
Okay.
But
So
tell us about it.
it's this little plastic mule, and you load it up with toys, little plastic things, and it's on a spring, and you put more and more on until all of a sudden it just goes bang. So that's how I describe. And unfortunately, I was married with small children, and autistic. So the technical term, I suppose, is an autistic. What's the word? Meltdown. That's the word I'm looking for.
Hmm.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I just wouldn't cope anymore. I just start screaming, shouting, and I'd never done it, but I didn't do it for years because I was so used to masking my distress, and I would take it away in private. When you're married and you've got children, you've got nowhere to escape to, and be working all day. And I had a series of it destroyed my marriage because we didn't understand about autism. I didn't realize, I didn't understand about myself. That's the thing. You see, religion just makes it harder for everybody to manage their own nervous system. So if you're autistic, it's that much more difficult, and religion makes you mask more, and yeah. So I suppose it was once I realised that I didn't believe, that my body'd already sort of half shut down, really, and I'm now getting therapy, and and realizing that at the age of 59, I can, I've got a chance to start again, which is, not everybody gets that chance, do they? You- yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. I feel like that you're bringing up the topic of neurodivergence, and I've saw that people mention it over the last couple of weeks at some point here or there, and I think that might almost be a really good topic for us to tackle in as the main theme of a night. I might put that on the radar in the next couple of weeks, but I think it's probably more relevant. And even people that wouldn't identify as neurodivergent, like I don't think I would necessarily say that I've ever been in that category, at least officially. I think there's some things that I could pick up on and say whether I am or not, and so forth. That there's still
Yeah.
lessons that I can say.
Yeah.
Okay, you might list, you, Mark, might list 10 things about your experience with Christianity being neurodivergent, and I might say, well, I'm not those 10, but 2 of those really ring a bell. It's very
Yeah.
possible that I could still learn some lessons. So I'd love to sort of dive into that with you again. But
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you've escaped. But yeah, I'm sorry that sounds like a very painful journey, especially with, just like you said, the meltdown and the shutdown and the migraines. Man, my goodness, that's awful. And it's amazing too that for a lot of us, we would not connect those dots for so long that we wouldn't say that has anything to do with Christianity. That's just, I'm overworked.
Yeah.
I've got insomnia. I'm not eating
Yeah.
right, whatever. I've got, something that's just, I haven't dealt with. And to be able to say like, no, I'm pretty sure I can connect the dots between what my pastor's been preaching to me and what my family's been telling me since was 5 years old. And it's like, that stuff adds up. And some of those seeds, they took a long time to germinate. You may not have, we may not have felt the trauma right away between like age 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but by the time you're 12 and 13, you put the dots together. By the time you're 20, that little sprout has actually grown into a weed. And now by the time you're 25, it's taken over your whole yard. And it's like, well, where did this start? It's like, well, some of this started when you were 5 years old. And it's like, that's why we're going to have to take a while to dig it out, because it didn't come quick, and it's not going to leave quick.
No, it's not. That's true. It's a real journey, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask, I did want to ask you if you have some other things to share, but can I make sure I ask, are you open at all to sharing your story? Because I know we've connected like a little bit, but are you open to sharing your story sometime?
Yeah, sometime, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially because now I know the way that you kind of mentor people through that process, and I think I could do with that. My executive skills are still not fully online, so I might write a little list of prompts, but I'll go down rabbit holes if I'm not careful, and so maybe if we could sort of plan it a little bit, it might be worth it.
Yeah, I think you would be a great person to share. And honestly, I see it as my responsibility as the host to help people with their storytelling. So if there's any way in which someone doesn't do a good job, I take it that's my fault, and I will make sure that I make sure it's really, really easy, and that I keep the conversation going. But I think you would do an amazing job, whatever the context. You're very well spoken. I just want to say I appreciate how articulate you are,
It's
and
been brilliant.
you have a great
So
accent.
one of my special interests is poetry. So
Okay.
that's the sort of autistic trait I have, that I have narrow focuses of interest, and
Wow.
so that's another area in which I've really enjoyed being part of your channel. Yeah, well, this
Well,
morning
we're doing a
poem
poetry
was
slam in a
awesome.
few weeks.
Yeah, now that might be a good vehicle for me, actually, Tim. I'm aware that I'm not very good sitting down for an hour and a half, because I'm ADHD. So I've got ADHD in my autism. So yeah, I get itchy pants. So
maybe we'll ease you in with a little 5 minutes of a poem.
yeah,
And if that goes really well, then we're going to get you on for the full interview.
Yeah,
Well,
sounds like a good plan.
Is there anything else on your heart tonight you wanted to share?
No, I just want to say how much I'm enjoying this journey with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Likewise. And have we connected yet on Facebook?
No. So I probably I don't do Facebook normally, but I could do it just to facilitate our communication if it works.
Yeah, if it works. And I'll put my handle in for you and for anyone else. Anyone that's thinking of doing an interview with me, just look me up under Harmonic Tim and add me there and message me, and we'll get started. But Mark, so good to see you finally.
Cheers.
Mark's you've been a big supporter of the channel, been cheering me on for a long time, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, cheers, Tim. Great to see you.
Good to see you. All right, I appreciate that so much. And we have Noelle in the back. I'm going to bring Noelle in just a minute, but I do just want to say again, thank you all so much for just all of the encouragement. Mark has been someone he's sent me messages over and over. The encouragement that he sends, the ways that he shows up. I know his name because he's been the kind of person that says, keep going and so forth. He gives so much encouragement. A lot of you fit in that category, and I just want to say thank you. It means the world to me, whether people support me financially or just give me the thumbs up. It means a lot to know that I'm being cheered on, and there's a great cloud of witnesses saying, this is important stuff. It really is. And I believe that if this isn't just like a hobby or a job for me, this is the most beautiful life at this point. For all the things I've been through and all the pain I've been through and all the experience, I feel like, and I know I'm keeping Noelle in the background, but Noelle, I'll bring in 1 second, but I feel like in many ways, like I'm in a position that some people couldn't be in, meaning some people might want to talk about this stuff, but they didn't go to Bible college to be a pastor. They didn't go to conservative schools and do all these things. They didn't do missions trips all over the world. They didn't preach on downtown Philadelphia. They didn't go to all these missions trips, and they didn't go into Greek and Hebrew. They didn't learn that stuff. They didn't read systematic theologies backwards and forwards for 20 years. I know this stuff. They didn't memorize, 3,000-4,000 verses. I did. And so I've said it before, but when you know how the sausage is made, you know how to undo it. I know how to put people into the kingdom. At least I did. Wouldn't do it now, of course, for all the money in the world. But I knew how to put people into the kingdom, and I know how to take them back out. And that makes us dangerous, friends. That makes us very dangerous. We have a job to do, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it well. We're going to do it respectfully. We're going to respect people's decisions. If they want to stay in Christianity, fine. But we're going to do one main job, which is we're going to tell people there's a lot more that they're not telling you in church. And the main focus is for me. There's a lot of focuses. I have two main focuses. Number one, they don't tell you about the mythology. Number two, they're not honest about the psychopathic nature of Yahweh. If that's the only thing I can put on the table with people, I will do it till the day I can't anymore. But that's what we're about. And I appreciate so much your willingness to be part of that, to share your stories, to just do all the different things that you do to help this channel grow. And I do believe that there are people who are going to look at this channel and say, people like Tim, people like Mark, people like Noelle, people like Shell, and all the other people and all the interviews that people come on and they'll say, you all became the inspiration for me to ask those hard questions and say, maybe I don't have all the information, and maybe I should not have made a lifelong and eternity commitment to this worldview unless I asked a few more hard questions. And maybe I will real quick before I go any further. And I think some of them will look back and say, oh my God, what have I done? I've given away my life to mythology. And they will look at you and say, you became my survival manual. So that excites me. And that's why I love what I do. And that's why I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can, hopefully till I'm an old man and then some. So, and you know, I was joking with Noelle even today. I intend to live forever. I know I can't do that. But hopefully I'll live a long enough time to make a real difference. And I think a lot of you will hopefully be repeats where Mark will come on and he'll come on and share his poem, and then he'll come on and share his story. And I'll be doing this, and 5 years later, and he'll come on and talk for another 2 hours about something deep on his heart. That's not his story, but just a passion about deconstruction. And hopefully we'll have just eventually, along with the other wonderful YouTube creators doing this, we'll have such a conglomeration that I mean, there's, if you're watching the news long enough, you see these reports that come through every once in a while that say religion is dying and people are leaving. And then you'll see this little report that says, faith is actually increasing in the UK. And then you'll read like 6 months later a report that says that was misconstrued, and let me tell you why. And you read it, you're like, oh, so it's still dying. It's dying. Religion is dying. People are seeing through the bullshit. And thanks in many ways, in this country, at least, to Donald Trump, people are saying, holy shit, this is what I signed up for? I don't think so. I signed up to love my neighbor, and this is what you Christians think we should be doing? Okay, thanks, but no thanks, I'm out. So he's doing our job for us as much as we despise him. Anyway, let me get to Noelle. Noelle is in the building. How you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
Good. Do you happen to have earbuds?
What? I don't. I'm not using them right now because I can't quite figure out the right setting for them.
Okay. I'm going to turn your mic down then, and I'm also going to be quiet because I'm coming through your mic as a feedback loop. But anyway, I'll be quiet so that I'm not annoying, and you go ahead and share your story.
I should like throw my earbuds across the room or something so they turn off. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a question for you first, if that's okay. Something I've been curious about. I ask you a million questions all the time, but it sort of relates to like my take on this. And do you remember being a kid, like kind of like a little kid, maybe a teenager, and it's Sunday morning and you're sick? You feel awful. Your throat hurts. You have a fever, and your parents are like, get up. Get up. It's church. We have to go. It's a family thing. It's important. You need to, it was the priority. And because of that, like, there was no my mom staying home and taking care of me, because unless I was like throwing up, immediately, like, anything else, it was like Tylenol and let's go. We're not gonna look like a family that doesn't care about church, because church is the most important thing. And if you show up for church, then you're honoring God, to the point that I just remember being in church and feeling so sick, and like sitting there in the pews and just wanting to fall asleep, and I felt like my parents didn't care about me. Like, I felt like, and at the same time, I felt like I trusted them, so they're also making the right choice for me, So it was just, I think and it's come up a little bit here and there also in the chat. I can't see anything. I'm not looking at myself. I can't see any comments that might be coming in or anything like that. But I think it might be relatable that a lot of our parents sacrificed our health in order to please God, even though it was really, really painful for the kids. So that's my question for you. Do you have like memories of that? Because obviously I do.
I'm going to mute you for a second just because we have a feedback loop so it doesn't go through, but I'll unmute you in 1 second. I would say I don't think I had that quite to that extreme. It's obviously different when your dad's like the pastor or right there up on stage all the time. My mom was a nurse, and so I think she was a little bit more sensitive to our sickness, so I maybe escaped some of the worst parts of some of those memories that could have happened. Um, I do know that it was important though, like if you weren't sick at all, that there was no other option. I still remember a story from Jim Dobson, Focus on the Family, talking about how like they at one point as a family went to a ski trip for like the weekend, and they were just like as a family they were like the teenagers or something were saying, Dad, meaning Jim Dobson, can we please go skiing on Sunday morning? And he was like, I don't care if we're on a ski trip. We go to church on Sunday, and I don't care if we're not near our home church. We might be out, whatever, in you know the snowy Alps of Colorado, whatever they were, wherever they were. But like we are going to honor God on Sundays, no matter what. And I don't care if there's beautiful snow out there. We are going to church, and that meant a lot to me in terms of at that time to think about that's an important commitment. We have to be in church. I think my issue with physicality in terms of the body trauma stuff was more related to just the sense that I really took to heart the fire and brimstone stuff, you know, and we weren't in the worst fire and brimstone. My dad would typically go to very fire and brimstone churches by himself on Sunday nights. He wanted that. He wanted to hear someone pounding, literally pounding the pulpit. He wanted to hear someone screaming about hell and screaming against gay people. He wanted to hear that. And unfortunately I didn't get, you know, I got maybe 10% of that. He took the brunt of that stuff voluntarily. He thought that was like the truest, purest kind of church that honors God, is that you pound the pulpit and you warn people about hell. Because, you know, when you die, you're going to wish, you know, in that worldview that someone had warned you about hell. But you know, I still remember some sermons where, you know, the pastor would get really serious. And I remember, I mean, some of the most serious ones I heard were at Bob Jones University, which is a very conservative fundamentalist school. But on a regular basis, you know, Dr. Bob would talk about it. He would, and he, you know, Bob Jones University, for anyone that doesn't know, they have no problem whatsoever, at least they didn't, in just getting in your face in any way, and they would embarrass you. I remember one time this one kid fell asleep in chapel, and we had chapel 4 times a week, and literally Dr. Bob was like, hey, you stand up until we're done. So he had to stand up in front of like 4,000 other students for the next 30 minutes because he fell asleep for a second in chapel. Like, they would embarrass you, they would shock you, and you're just like, oh fuck, I need to sit up straight and make sure no one thinks I'm sleeping. My body needs, and you get that very tense sense of like, I'm one step away from being in trouble and getting demerits. You know, who gives demerits to, you know, to young adults? And why would adults ever think of demerits? But demerits is this thing at Bob Jones, and you get them for not cleaning your sink and not shaving your face in time. But you know, you live in that fear that somebody's going to catch you. And between all that, I think that was more my version. But anyway, let me go. I'll go back and mute myself and unmute you so you can respond and share whatever else you want to share about your story.
Do I sound okay? Is it like super annoying? Should I log out and log back in?
No, you sound good. As long as I mute you when I speak, it's just the feedback loop because I muted you, we can't hear you. But as long as when you start speaking, I'm on mute, we're fine. There's no feedback loop because I'm not coming through your speakers at that point. So you're good. You're a little crackly, but the feedback loop is gone if I do it right, which I will.
Okay. All right, good. That's important to me. Anyways, I think for me, what I went through as a child, because your mom was a nurse, she could identify some things. My dad was a pastor, and his wife was a pastor, and it was incredibly important for their image. And, you know, we all had to look the part, dress the part. I always had to wear these little Mary Jane shoes with like the fold over lacy thing and like a weird, like a sister wife dress with this like bib thing. And like, I had to look the part. I had to be perfect, and I had to look healthy, even if I didn't feel healthy, even if I was absolutely miserable. My parents put in me that I was representing God to God's people. And I guess, I mean, it's kind of a painful detail to mention, but after I got married, I was 22 years old. I met the guy in Bible college, very conservative Bible college, that was like an hour away from where you went to Bible college. And we got married and we went on our honeymoon in Niagara Falls, New York. And one of the first things he did when we got there, we got married on, I think a Friday, but he was looking in the yellow pages for a local church that we could go to on Sunday morning. This is so personal, but I'm just going to say it. I was not a virgin when we got married. I was close though. You know, I had very few sexual experiences. It was with one person, and I had done my repentance thing, and you know, I'm a new virgin, whatever they tried to convince us, you know, because we were fully repentant and felt like shit for having any sexual feelings or relationships with anybody before, you know, the holy event of marriage. He was a virgin. And that time was like super precious to us. It was, we were working our butts off before we got married. He lived really far away from me, so we had some time apart. We finally got married. We went to Niagara Falls for our honeymoon. And the most important thing to him was making sure that we attended a random church on Sunday morning. And I could not believe it. I was just like, wait a minute, because I was the one who my parents were, I mean, consistently pressuring and making sure that we were there 24/7. And I was a little bit more gracious to the situation that we were in. I was a little bit more like, it's one Sunday. And he just couldn't do it. Like, he felt incredibly convicted. And so after marrying him, we went to church consistently. And we went to a church. It was super traditional, conservative Baptist church, King James only, for 7 years. We were the youngest people there by far. We were the only people without gray hair. And I was miserable. I was like, I don't have a friend in this state. That's not an old lady trying to mentor me. And because of that, I remember being at our kitchen table and sobbing and saying, can we please think about switching churches? And he said, well, when I was a brand new believer, the pastor mentored me. The youth pastor was answering all of my questions for hours and hours in his car, you know, after youth group when he dropped me off because I didn't have a ride. And so we need to honor what they did for me by continuing to show up. And I mean, there was no thought of how I was feeling in that situation. And I felt sick. You know, I felt like my stomach was always bothering me and I couldn't sleep well. And I thought it was my fault. I thought that I brought this on myself. It was some kind of spiritual oppression. It was demons, because I was so important that God was allowing demons into my life that would negatively impact me so that I could figure out how to be on the straight and narrow. And I didn't seek care. I didn't go to doctors. I didn't get antibiotics, like all these things. I didn't go to the checkups I should have gone to as a woman, as a human being. I just let it. I just blindly trusted. You know, I just did. And here's where things changed for me. Okay. That was the negative impact on my body, is that I didn't take care of myself. I was in denial about how miserable I was. And I put in the hands of a God who apparently could make blind people see, and people who couldn't walk. And, you know, I had bronchitis for a month, And if, like, I was just like working and like trying to and showing up for everything, even though I was deathly ill, and moving forward, like, and working so hard when I was sick was just making me sicker. And I asked God to, like, please help me. At the same time, I was also super ashamed to admit how bad I felt, how badly my body was hurting. And then we're like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That was my senior quote that remains in infamy in my yearbook. And because of that, I all right, things changed for me when I had kids. And they were babies. They got sick, and I remember just having my first little baby, and he was so small. He was basically like 3 months old or something. I'm pretty sure I went to church maybe the next Sunday after he was born, after having a vicious C-section. And I felt obligated to do that. I felt like all these people, especially these old people, they threw me a baby shower. I should show up. And I shuffled along in the hallways, and trying to be there for everybody else and the God that I was trying to prove that I cared enough, that I loved enough. And I think because of that, there was this moment of self-sacrifice where Jesus Christ died on a cross. Let's talk in depth about him being whipped for hours and having a crown of thorns mushed on his head and being on a cross and all these things. And is it really too hard for you to show up when your throat hurts and you got some sniffles? And that kept me engaged and feeling like this is my obligation, it's my duty. And if I don't, then I'm not loving and worshiping and respecting the God who made me and saved me. And I remember I remember one specific morning, my little boy, his name is Tony. He's 18 now. So but sometimes with the first one, you kind of remember everything. And like with the two middles, it's like a little fuzzy. And then with the last one, you're like taking pictures of everything and like hugging them all the time and babying them, even though they're well past the age of, all the ways that we take care of them, that they could probably take care of themselves. And I remember he was so sick. Like I remember like his eyes were glassy and he had an obvious fever. It was his first sickness. There was snot running down his face. He was drooling. He was crying. And I said to, my husband, now ex-husband, Chad, I don't want to take him to church. Obviously, he can't take care of himself. So you can go or stay with me, but I'm not going. And I remember Chad saying, he'll be fine. And I knew better. I knew this was not good. I knew that the ladies in the nursery were going to have to deal with a screaming, crying infant. I knew that I probably might end up spending the duration of the service in, I'm going to swear, fucking church clothes that did not actually fit me very well because I just birthed a baby a couple, months earlier. I knew the whole church was sort of like watching us be this spiritually powerful couple that was going to do all these great things for God. And it meant I was sacrificing my health. I was sacrificing my child's health. And I was deferring to my husband, who was supposed to be my spiritual leader, a truly unempathetic, kind man when it came down to it. Like this was always looking back about how he felt about things, and he wanted us to look good to this church. And so I just remember like all of it like putting Tony in a little onesie that matched his pants, that, you know, all these little steps that I took to make sure that my really sick child looked good, because his dad wanted to look good, and because that's what would make God look good, and to feel responsible for how God looked. I just felt it, you know, I felt it. And so I'll say this: after deconverting, I became more in tune. I definitely, not only to my kids' illnesses, but my own. I recognized that I needed to be there for my kids. I needed to advocate for them when they weren't feeling well. I didn't want to push them to go to church or, you know, do things and be there for their parents and, you know, the God that they were supposed to love and serve, that their health was a priority. And I realized I hadn't made mine a priority. And I think that was like the big difference for me. That was like the change, that I suddenly was listening to my body and getting the help that I needed, and taking medicine or resting, or, you know, all the things that I had ignored in the past and thought, hey, you know, God's going to save me, heal me, blah, 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 like all these things. Um, Once you realize that God's not there, in a sense, you sort of become your own advocate. And Christianity tells you that that is selfish. That's idol worship, because you're sort of worshiping yourself. And it's such bullshit, you know, because we're essentially, Christianity exposes us to all of the elements: rain, sleet, snow, depression, all of it. Like, we're not allowed to protect ourselves. We're just supposed to face it and imagine that we'll survive because God loves us, even though so many people don't survive. And it, you know, looking at my kids, I wanted to be a shield for them. I didn't want them to live through what I lived through. And I was pretty sick of living through what I had lived through, and causing people in my life, or allowing people in my life, to tell me that that's what I owed this God, because he saved me. Saved me. You know, it's just this whole, if you do this for me, then you owe me something mindset. It's so petty and immature and archaic, and I never want anybody in my life to do anything for me because I did something for them. You know, it's just, that to me doesn't make any sense. I think that we should help each other and love each other just because we want to, not because we feel obligated to. And that God, he just, everything is obligation. Everything.
Yeah, well said. I'm going to mute you for a second just to respond. I completely agree that there's a lot of ways in which this stuff comes out. I didn't personally see that. I don't remember quite as much as the way you're describing with your kids, but there's a lot of ways in which, one way or another, we all end up ignoring our bodies for the sake of God. I remember probably more, if I could relate at all to that, was more just the desire in general to exhaust myself for God. And that was less my parents imposing that. That was me. You know, I remember the phrase a lot. I mean, I heard this stuff a lot from people, but the goal was to be spent for Christ. You want your life to be spent, and you want to. I remember again the Jim Elliot quote that became basically my life motto. He was a missionary that got killed by tribal people, but he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And in that, the sense of like you can't keep your body, but you can keep your soul. And so waste yourself for Christ. Like, what a beautiful way to do this. And I don't know that I necessarily got anywhere near aesthetic Christianity where like the monks and that kind of stuff, but you'd read of these people who were so intense in their passion for God that they wanted to fast far longer than they should have, or just deprive themselves so much. And I think in many ways, I got into some, how should I put this? I got into some weird philosophies that I didn't believe in them. I just saw them happening. I wondered about it regarding Catholic asceticism, where the monks would deprive themselves, their bodies on purpose. And it was a very weird thing, but I don't know if you're familiar with this. I'm not going to unmute you because it's it'll do a feedback loop. I'll just say this: there are some Catholic monks that would write about their intimacy with God, and when you read it, you'd swear you're reading about somebody having sex. You're just like, this is kind of weird. I remember, and this the gateway drug for that for me was the musician that I followed was Michael Card, and Michael Card was a good evangelical Christian, as far as I knew. But he did a CD with a Roman Catholic monk named John Michael Talbot. John Michael Talbot was like a very well established priest, but also very, very skilled musician at the same level as Michael Card. And they, have being Protestant and Catholic, ironically had incredible respect for each other. And when they did a CD together called Brother to Brother, where they were singing each other's songs, they kind of re-orchestrated each other's songs, but they kept the lyrics that the other person had come up with, and they redid each other's songs for like 10 songs apiece. And I began to just be like, is this appropriate? Should we be singing with Catholics? And I began to investigate John Michael Talbot and some of his earlier CDs and some of the stuff that they talk about. And there were CDs where these monks, the words were like, the monks would meet the lover on the beach, and they'd go into a cave, and then the lover, the female character in a sense, would say, he suspended all my senses, and it gets really erotic. And they're doing stuff in a cave on the beach, and you realize they're talking about the monk's relationship with the Holy Spirit, with God, and it's erotic as can be. And it gets to a point where you begin to think about, like, what does asceticism mean, and what is it possible to deprive your body in certain ways that actually bring you spiritual pleasure that's so much greater than any physical pleasure? And you start to just get really weird in your thoughts, and these questions are so bizarre, but it's all in different ways to say your body's bad. And like, if you really want sex, what you really need is to just pray more, and God will kind of give you God sex. Like, I'm sorry, this is some weird ass shit, but like, that's the kind of confusion that would happen, where you'd be like, why can't I just enjoy my body? And I would say, in many ways, my panic attacks and the stuff we're going to talk about again, that came more related to my insomnia. More to my insomnia, but which I think was probably related to Christianity, but I can't draw a distinct line and say it definitely was. But I think in many ways, I just felt like my body wasn't safe in Christianity. I felt like between the insomnia and the general sense that my sexuality was being attacked, the fact that I definitely had heart palpitations from the fear that these preachers are going to call me out or find out about my sin. It's so weird how Christianity's relationship to the body is really a love-hate relationship. But anyway, I'm going to go on mute and let you say a final word here, and then we'll wrap up.
Oh, I definitely agree. And that was one of the first things I thought of, when you brought up this topic. And I had read, and I was in a women's Bible study, there's a book by Lisa Turkhurst. It's called 1,000 Gifts. And the challenge is that you're supposed to journal and look around at your life and recognize every little beautiful natural thing and then attribute it to God. A flower that you walk past, a little child who's holding their mother's hand. I think at one point she was writing down that she was thankful for bubbles when she was washing dishes because it looked beautiful or something. Like, she acknowledged everything. And I mean, we as miserable Christian wives and women bought it hook, line, and sinker. Please help me appreciate and love my mundane life, where the only thing I do is honor and serve my husband in the ways that he demands, and take care of children in the same ways that my church, aka God, and the interpretation of the Bible says that I should. And the last chapter of that book essentially was her describing, Lisa Turkhurst, and we read this together, a group of 20 women in a room with folding chairs, her describing a spiritual orgasm. It was, there's waves of pleasure and you let go of all your inhibitions and like you have this amazing connection with God. And like, I was like, whoa. I remember bringing it up and going, please tell me she's not going there. And my reasoning was, as from childhood, I was taught that my own sexuality was something that didn't belong to me. My feelings, they needed to be given to somebody else. And that once I gave all of that vulnerability to a man who I was married to, that I would never have any feelings of longing or desire or anything again. Like, it made I I I feel really vulnerable saying this, but it made me not want to be touched as a woman, as a married woman who actually loved my husband, but didn't quite know how to actually relate to him outside of the fact that God brought us together. And so therefore we belong together. I turned a blind eye to so many things that I wish I would have noticed, because there were red flags popping up everywhere. We were not compatible. Looking back now, I think he thought he was a good person, tried to be a good person, but Christianity really made him not that great a person. And in all of that, I edged out any sort of sexual feelings that I might have had and called it sin. And leaving Christianity definitely awakened me and definitely made me go, oh, like things feel a little tingly, and like I'm not going to feel ashamed thinking about these things and maybe fantasizing or allowing myself to recognize and appreciate my own eroticism, my creativity in that, and my appreciation for that, and also not judging other people for their eroticism. And if they want to share that with me, or my male friends, female friends, it's just a sharing of things, that there was going to be no part of me that would make them feel ashamed for that they should celebrate that and appreciate that, because that is one of the most amazing things, the most amazing parts of being a human being. And evangelical Christianity suppresses that, and it says that shouldn't be who you want to be. You should feel shame if you feel those things. And in my understanding of men were told it's women's fault if she dresses a certain way or is anyway flirtatious or happens to be walking at night by herself, and so it absolves him of the responsibility. And yet there's all these verses where Jesus says, pluck your eye out. And it's confusing. And so in my experience, Christian men have told me that I need to dress differently. I need to, many men in my life have told me, don't cause your brother to stumble by being attractive. And at the same time, it's like, I'm not trying to be attractive. Like I like looking nice. Like I like, we have women get to wear a little makeup, we get to have some fun hairstyles that men typically don't get to, we get to be creative in that aspect, but it's not necessarily to try to catch a man's eye. It's to be able to allow ourselves to be the person that we envision ourselves to be, that we want to be, like, that makes us feel like we're in our skin. We're just, I don't know, I like that shirt. I should not have to ask myself the question, is that shirt going to cause a brother to stumble or a pastor to judge me or somebody to rape me? Like, it's just a shirt. And so I think that coming in touch with my own body, I recognized the ways that I had suppressed that aspect of who I naturally could be and wanted to be deep down, because that's freedom. Freedom is knowing yourself. It's being able to recognize who you are outside of all these limitations that a god or a man or anybody in, you know, your circle tells you that you should be. And you get to finally be the person that you are. And the people who don't like it and don't appreciate it, kick rocks. You know, the right people are going to come on your path, and they might be few and far between. And even if you're alone, it's much better company than being with people who try to turn you into who they think that you should be, because it makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, well said. I want to put you on mute there. I just appreciate all these you shared. I think you've got great insights and good stuff. And I'm so glad that that you and that all of us in the community can look at our bodies so differently, whether we're talking about sexuality or eroticism or just anything, just being safe in our own skin and letting go of some of the trauma and trauma responses, the heart palpitations, the breathing, whatever it is. So many ways in which we are hitting the reset button. So it's good stuff. I'm going to go on mute one more time to see if you have anything else to say to wrap up, and then I'll go into back either to anyone else. I'll just add the link here again for anyone that wants to join us on StreamYard. And if no one joins us, I've got some other things to share, but I'll let Noelle wrap us up with her part of it tonight.
I do not have anything to add. I know you're shocked. Like, you're like, wait a minute. But I think that I just really appreciate this topic, because I think a lot of us have ignored or just sort of pushed aside the ways that Christianity has impacted our bodies negatively, have kept us from taking care of ourselves, have kept us out of touch, have we got this one life, we should enjoy it. There's so much in Christianity that says, suffer now, you'll be okay in the afterlife. And realizing that just isn't true has changed everything for how I treat my body. And I think because of that, mental health too, because of that, I'm a completely different person, completely unrecognizable to the people who knew me before, because I completely submitted myself to this authority that said, I own your body. Your body, give it to me. It's, the only responsibility that you have for your body is that you're submitting it to bear children, to serve at a potluck, to marry a guy who wants to have sex 3 times a day, even though he hasn't had a conversation with you. Yeah, all these things cause women, me, to let go of any value that I might actually have, any acknowledgement of the things that should have been on the forefront for so long. It caused us to just be sacrificial and sacrificial and sacrificial to a point where we had no idea who we were. And I will tell you this, as a Christian wife, I was dutiful in every way, but in sexuality. I was like, I didn't know how to acknowledge that. I did not know how to be a kid from the youngest of ages who was told you have to wear shorts underneath your skirt in case a grown man might catch a glimpse of your, panties when you were like doing the jungle gym stuff. Like, you were like, why? Like, am I responsible for his thoughts? Like, really? And then going on to just be a young woman who just feels like everything in youth group taught us we're supposed to be modest. And that was like our highest calling. And that we were somebody's future wife. And so therefore we needed to preserve every aspect of ourselves for that guy. Hormones be damned. Erotic feelings, sin. all these things were suppressed. And then as a Christian woman who did all those things and really believed all those things, gets married in a white dress and is suddenly supposed to turn on some switch that says, you're erotic, and what do you want, and what do you think is hot, and what do you know, like, what gets you going, what gives you orgasms, what makes you feel this part of yourself that has been forbidden for so long. Suddenly you're allowed to. And it's like, I don't even begin to know how to do that. And there's certainly nobody in my Christian circle that can help me with that. And they have no idea either, because these old ladies probably haven't had sex with their husbands in 20 years. And it's like, they're not going to be ones that can tell you how to enjoy that aspect of life. And I believe that Christianity disconnects. It completely disconnects. And it says, and it's taught by men who want to be in ownership of women's bodies, that they're insecure. There's a sense of like, I need to know that I'm the only man you've ever been with, lest I feel like I wasn't good enough, or I failed somehow, or sexually, like I wasn't able to give her a bunch of orgasms, or maybe my penis is too small, or maybe, all these like things, these factors that cause these men to emasculate them, essentially. They go ahead and put that at women, young women, girls, and say, it's up to you to make me feel as though I am an amazing, awesome, strong, masculine man. And this whole thing has been painted in many religions to make sure that women have very few sexual partners, if any at all, other than him, so that he can feel good about himself, so he can feel confident. And women's joy and sexuality and the pleasures that we naturally, it comes so easy for us in the right context, has been suppressed because he can't handle the fact that another man might do it better than him. But that's not women. That's not how we see things. We're not comparative. We could definitely enjoy a full sexual relationship with a man who has a dad bod, or like, isn't necessarily that experienced, or like all the things that he feels. Just talk to us and like share yourself with us and have that bonding relationship, and it's explosive and wonderful and amazing. And we will take a hard pass on six-pack abs and $1 million in the bank. We just want a connection. And I think that Christianity takes that away from couples. It robs us from so much joy and connection. It makes us feel like that we're never good enough. In every other way, we're never good enough. And this way that we're never good enough, is so painful, and it keeps us so miserable. And that's sad to me, because it's unfortunate, and it's such an easy thing, to take care of, and that it wouldn't be a factor anymore, and that we could just love our lives and our bodies and the feelings that we feel and the sexuality that we have. And it's just, for me, that was a big difference, because I didn't feel sick anymore in that way. I finally felt free. I finally felt healthy. I finally was just and you and I have talked a lot about this, as miserable as I am in being lonely and divorce and financial woes, and I don't know what's around the corner. I am happier than I've ever been. I really am. And I don't care if the people in my life that don't like it want to imagine that I am miserable and being punished by God, and Satan is suddenly in my life trying to make me miserable and take everything away from me. Fine, you can believe that. I don't care. you know, it doesn't bother me a bit because I know who I am and I know that I'm a good person. I know that I'm trying my best and I'm working my hardest for the ones that I love. And I also, for the first time in my life, I'm having a season of life where I am learning to take care of my body after having abused it and taken it for granted, to recognize that that's who I am and I'm a good person and my body is good and it works and I'm going to enjoy every moment that I possibly can with the life that I have in every way that I can. And it takes a bit of learning though, doesn't it? Like there's a bit of guilt, you know, when it comes to taking a nap or like having ice cream for dessert or, you know, all these things that we're told, especially as a Christian woman. It was really important. It was like instilled in us that we had to be really skinny. Like we had to be hurting all the time for a meal or like cheese or anything. And I remember like my ex-husband weighed like 145 pounds. And I remember feeling like I got to stay under that. And my build is a little bit more stocky and I'm only 5'1", but that required me to be walking and running and have gym memberships that we couldn't really afford in order to try to maintain that image because that looked the part. And it's just everything has changed for me. It's so different. And as much as the pain was there and the suffering was there, that pain and suffering informed me that that wasn't okay and I needed to make changes. For the first time, I wasn't putting that in the hands of God, saying, fix it, and then walking away. I was like, okay, like, I'm the one advocating for myself. What can I do at this point to make sure that I love the body that I live in? And I'm not going to let people in my life that they're going to criticize that or have any sort of judgment about that. Like, just let myself enjoy the body that I live in and being a human being, whatever that means.
I love it. I'm going to put you on mute there, but I just want to say thank you again. I'll let you. I'll come off mute and let you go quick goodbye. But thank you so much for your thoughts. And I just want to say too, I know I told you all before that whenever someone does an interview, I take notes throughout the interview. It's rare that I wrap up an interview without 5 to 10 pages of notes. I write with my pen on my pad here. No one sees me writing, and sometimes it's chicken scratch because I'm not looking at what I'm writing, but I end up figuring out what I was trying to say, and I take notes, and I learned so much. And then, of course, when I go back, if they were pre-recorded videos, I would listen to the video again to edit it. I'm doing it differently now. I'm doing live streams, but I would take notes again when I would listen to the video. But I love how someone like you and Mark as well, and Shell, I learned so much so fast, but also you all just give me ideas. I literally have come up with like 10 ideas for other live streams just listening to you all so far. You give me at least 5 ideas in the last 10 minutes. So I appreciate just the way that what you all say I can kind of bounce my creativity off of. So it's a little bit of a team effort there, but I'll go on mute one more time. You can say a quick last word.
The last thing I wanted to say, and I said it in the chat, I wish that people in this community felt more confident to jump on and talk. I just wish, because I have learned so much from other people's stories, and I'm like, how do I find you on Facebook? And I don't know, because I want that conversation to continue, because my world is so small socially. And so it takes a minute for me to come on camera and think I might look really stupid or ridiculous or, all those things. And my encouragement to you, anybody out there who's feeling this way, just do it anyway. Just do it anyway, because your story and the things that you share, you have no idea how far reaching it is. How many people are going to relate to you, and you're going to give them strength that they did not have before. And that means something. And it means everything, to be honest. In the, you know, deconversion, deconstruction journey, we have to be there for each other because we don't fucking have church people. For the most part, we don't have family members who raised us in that toxic system. We have to be able to find some sort of community, and even if it's just one friend, one conversation, one anything that helps us to have a little bit more peace than we had before. Make a connection, even if it only lasts for 30 minutes, that helps to validate all the things we feel insecure about. And it's taken me a bit. I've been like a little bit insecure, like, oh, you know, like I would much maybe prefer just my voice to come across, or maybe just type something in the comments. But I'm recognizing that we're just all human beings doing our best. Our audio quality's not going to be awesome. We might have like a little double chin happening that we wish wasn't there. You know, all these things that keep us from just saying, my story is important, and I think sharing it will not only be healing for me, but could be helpful for other people. And just bite the bullet. And once you do, it feels really good. It really, same way that Christianity was this sort of blanket on us that made us feel like, okay, you could just hide underneath that. Suddenly you're free. And I think being able to tell your story makes you actually free. And so I would encourage anybody who's still on, like, I can't see you, I don't know what your comments are, I have no idea, but this has been really helpful for me. It really has. And everything that you've been seeking to do and have made so many efforts to bring truth to light for people who have been in this darkness and misery of Christianity that they will not acknowledge. I surely did not acknowledge when I was in it at the moment, so I can appreciate what they went through. This is just it's a much better way to live. I don't know how to encourage other people to sort of jump that hurdle and just admit it and talk about it and be free about it. But it's a step towards a level of freedom that Christianity could not ever provide. And because of that, I'm like kind of an addict. You know, I can't quit it. I just want to know more and understand more and disqualify Christianity more and love the people in my life who are still trapped in it more, so that I'm there for them when and if that light goes on. So, I mean, that's really all I wanted to say to anybody who's still listening. This has been really good for me. And if somebody thinks it might be good for them, dive in.
I love it. I'm putting you in with there just to wrap up so I don't come through in the feedback. But thank you so much, Simone. I completely agree. And our stories are so powerful. And our stories, in some ways, like we say, become someone else's survival manual. And even if it's not that, it's just the sense that there's the bravery that we all can glean to say, you know, if they can survive their journey, maybe I can too. And I know I've shared this before, so I'm repeating myself, but I'm working on a script where I'm going to share my story, where I'm both the interviewer and an interviewee. I'll have to do 2 recordings and merge them in very creative ways. But I'm hoping that it looks like as if I've got a twin or something. But in that, the goal is to expand this script pretty long. It's going to be like the full interview. I'm gonna do like a 3 or 4 hour interview. And since I've been going through my story, I'm just kind of talking, you know, my story. The live streams, right, is kind of meander. But you know, within a year, hopefully, I'll put this together and do it. And I've got a desire to be very incisive and very, very much like slicing and dicing some things in ways and getting, as I like to say, back in preacher mode to make sure some points are emphasized. And it's you know, it's just our stories really do matter. So thank you so much for that. And you're welcome at any point. Thank you so much for jumping in tonight, and looking forward very much to you jumping in for whatever topic comes up next that's helpful to you or that you have something to share. But thank you, Noelle. Appreciate it. And I will admit, I'll say this up front. Noelle was talking about ice cream for dessert, and I swear I thought she was going to say ice cream for breakfast, and I thought I was going to be exposed. But thank you for not exposing me, Noelle. No, I don't do ice cream for breakfast much. No, I've every once in a while, I'll just like have this weird craving for like one spoonful. My kids, we got a one the other day called Fluffernutter. You ever heard of that one? It's literally like what you think fluff, like marshmallow fluff, and nutter like peanut butter. So it's like this light peanut butter flavored ice cream with marshmallow fluff in it. And it's not like my favorite, but it's pretty interesting. But I do like occasionally to have a spoonful of something at breakfast, but usually not too much. I'm going to read a few comments here. Shell was in the studio for a little bit, but looks like she had to drop. So I'm sorry, Shell, if it works out for you to jump back in. I'll be on for another 15, 20 minutes at least. But I'm going to go back to some comments here in the meantime. And let's see here. Cold Iron Gaming. Hey, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here if you're still here. Psychology says there are so many people intelligent, yet they believe and defend this ridiculous, stupid myth. Yeah, for sure. Shell said panic attacks can overlap with other physical symptoms. I did get checked out. I'm good. It was definitely an adrenaline response from feeling unsafe due to religion for me. Yeah, for sure. I'm so glad that you're okay. But yeah, it's a lot of us, I think, go through that quite a bit. Badger, the wind in the willows. I like that. When I was in, I could feel the hypocrisy, but I didn't have words to verbalize it. Yeah, great point. A lot of us, I think, did not have the words. They didn't talk about, trauma and hypervigilance. It just wasn't part of the topic. The more vigilant you could be for God, the better. So there's no hyper. If anything, you're always deficient. But if you can be hyper vigilant, that's just basically being truly committed to God. But eventually you learn what's really going on. Great to see you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us. Bullshit's the word. So many layers of bullshit. God requires bullshit worship. Yeah. Religion makes us manic depressive. You drive yourself manically till your body stops you dead. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That quote, "He is no fool," is C.T. Stott, founder of the BC. I was looking up while you were, I saw you said that, and then I looked up on Google. It looks like they're saying even there may have been several other people that said it. So apparently whoever had it kind of kicked the can down the road. They're saying that there was some pastor from the 17th century named Philip Henry. He is no fool who parts with that which he cannot keep, when he is sure to be recompensed with that which he cannot lose. So it sounds like they may have sort of borrowed the quote and kept on going backwards, but at least it got popularized, I guess, with Jim Elliot. But yeah, it's the definite sense is they're like, give up your life here to gain eternal life. Give up everything here because it will be worth it in the end. And that grabbed my imagination so strongly. This is just what I need today after being at a Christian wedding all day. I think referring to the comments I had about the monks and their erotic poetry. Yeah, a relief to be here after that. God's sex is some weird ass shit. Yeah, I mean, but Jesus is the bridegroom of the church, and there were some Gnostics, some early Gnostics that definitely brought in some erotic imagery to early church writings. I mean, you talk about Jesus goes into the Holy of Holies and rends the veil. I mean, there's some absolutely physical erotic imagery in the early Christianity. Great to see you again, Cold Iron Gaming. Very traumatizing day. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Christian stuff, whether you're going to a wedding or a funeral or whatever, it can definitely trigger you. I've been there a little bit, not too much, but Alex, I would find a day with Christians very difficult. Yeah. I definitely, I don't have to deal with it too much myself, but I think that under certain circumstances, it would feel very weird. It's just such a bizarre religion. Once you're out of it long enough, you're like, this is some really weird stuff. Eating a dead man's body and drinking a dead man's blood, and the Holy Spirit that originally we know now was like a very feminine character, and it's now like neutered, and so there's a father and a son, but there's no wife. But every other religion has a wife, and the Holy Spirit used to kind of be like a wife character, but now she isn't. But you worship it all, and you think that the wife character, the Holy Spirit, comes inside your heart, so you have God's wife inside of you. I'm just like, can you not see how bizarre some of this stuff is? Like, come on. Yeah, they take it too far. Freedom is knowing yourself, from Noel. It teaches us to disassociate from our bodies and feelings. You can't really have freedom in religion. Yeah, absolutely. It's ironic. Religion told us it sets you free when the opposite is true. Very, very true. Well said, Noel. Yep, Noel has a lot of great insights. No, nothing to be ashamed of. It's great that you're in a better place. And you do feel guilty for pampering yourself. Absolutely. Yeah, you feel like self-care is a form of selfishness and maybe even fleshliness. Noel is so cool. I just want to enjoy being human, whatever that means. Yeah. Yeah, just let me be safe in my own skin. Let me be safe in my own thoughts. For goodness sake, let me be human. Yeah, a lot of opportunities to come on. So yeah, no pressure. I'm trying to do these every night. There's going to be some interviews coming up soon where they're going to be like a little bit later in the day. So it's going to be like really tight to like do like an interview from 5 to 7 p.m. and then jump back on at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. It would just be like almost 4 hours straight for me of video time. But on the nights when I'm not doing an interview later in the day like that, this is my intention, unless I get really sick or something for that day, to jump on and to, you know, I've got some really cool topics. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but just like there's some critical stuff that I think we can work through and get some great insights. And I think it's probably already on your minds and hearts in some way. And just to have someone kind of put it out there very boldly and clearly and say, let's talk about this topic. So hopefully this is helpful to us all as we keep going. Yeah, our community is very precious. Both to me, this Harmonic Atheist, but the entire atheist agnostic community is very precious. If I didn't believe in God, I'd probably go on the internet with that haircut too. Yeah, not really the season for ice cream. Ice cream on breakfast cereal is really good, but addictive. I've not tried it on breakfast cereal. That's interesting. So it looks like Shell's back. She had to disappear for a little bit, so she's back. So we're going to bring her back in before she has to go back to parenting duties. But Shell, because you're jumping in here twice, I will stamp your frequent flyer card twice. You get extra points tonight. But thanks for coming back on.
Hi, Tim. Thanks. I just wanted to share because when Noelle came on, and specifically something she said about basically having to choose between being a good parent and like being a good Christian, essentially, where you can probably hear my dog barking in the background. Sorry, dogs, kids, they're probably all being loud.
Oh, no worries.
So one thing that stuck out to me, so she was talking about how her kiddo was sick, and she was like, no, I don't want to bring him to church like this. You know, we need to stay home and take care of him, because she had kind of had some trauma in her past from her parents doing that to her. Something that really was deflating for me as a parent, when a new parent, was the just trying to be able to breastfeed my child at church and deal with being a new mom and still staying faithful, going to church. When there was, like, my first, she was very, very fussy. She has some special needs, so she never wanted to be set down. It's not like I could, leave her in the nursery or whatever. And then my church was also very like nature or natural, do everything the natural way kind of thing. Like the ladies were all like into the essential oils and all of this. And so like breastfeeding was a really, really big thing. Right. And so I felt this pressure to breastfeed. And I wanted to too, I mean, for the health benefits and everything. But at the same time, like, I felt scared to breastfeed at church because of modesty, right? They had an area for moms to breastfeed, but it was down in the nursery, and the dads walked in and out. And I've got a 6-month-old who's starting to like kick the blanket off that or the nursing cover off and everything. So just having that be a whole challenge. I remember one time I told my husband, I was like, I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to go just breastfeed out in the car. And then so I'm sitting there out in the car trying to breastfeed and feeling like, wow, I can't even, sit in through the church service and everything. And And then like a dad walks out, or, you know, one of the other guys walks out or whatever. And I'm like so afraid because he's walking near the car. And I'm just like, the modesty, the purity culture, all of that. The fact that I didn't even feel comfortable breastfeeding my own child because of all of that, because our body is so shamed. That was just something that stuck out to me, where like the having to choose between being like a good, modest Christian woman and feeding my child. I don't know. That was just something that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. That's fascinating. I had the same thoughts myself, as even as a Christian, that we're really shaming ourselves to the point that we can't even do something natural like nursing a baby. I think I shared before couple weeks ago. I've had several books I was working on as a Christian in my last few years as a Christian. One of them was a worldview book, one was a book on prayer, and one was a book about the body. I called it "Set Up to Fail," and it was about this concept that we are set up to fail by making the body so secretive that we end up, even though we think we're protecting ourselves from sin, we basically keep thinking about the body because we're hiding it so much that we make it a secret, and then everyone's kind of secretly thinking about it, and we create these double lives. And I've talked
Yeah.
about that with the pastoral students department. But when I was working on this book, this very topic that you're talking about came up. And I remember I went through a class up. It was up in New York. I was in Philadelphia at the time with where I was growing up, but I had finished Bible college, and I was just a young adult working. I was a cabinet maker, working building cabinets, but I was working on these Christian books, and I was really wanting to understand why it seems like so many Christian men are just so messed up with their interpretation of sexuality. And so I took this class on how to become a lactation counselor consultant, and it wasn't because I wanted to use it. I didn't expect any women to want to hire a man for that job, but I wanted to understand just like how it all works. And of course, I got so much applause from the women that we took this group pictures. Like there's 50 people that graduated from this class, and they all like put the man in the middle. You know, this is like once in a lifetime. You don't get men in these group shots. But I got, you know, officially certified as a lactation counselor. But my goal was just the education. And you know, you're sitting in this class for a whole week, listening to this very educated nurse talking about it, and talking about stuff like, you know, when the baby gets sick, the mother picks up on it, and her body changes, you know, the composition
Yeah,
of the
the
milk
changes.
to
Mhm.
directly address the issue. And just, you know, you're like, your jaw's dropping with how amazing this is. And of course, as a Christian at the time, I'm thinking, you know, praise the Lord, God does amazing things. But
Right.
it's still just like this sense of like, this is an amazing thing, and yet, like, number one, men never get to see it because it's a big secret, unless you're, you know, your wife, you know, you see it with your wife, but like you never get to see it. And yet it's such a pivotal part of human beauty. And men, when they see something like breastfeeding, which is natural and wonderful and one of the most profound things to see in life, men are seen as dirty, and men are kind of like make it into a joke, and it's somehow like a dirty thing to look at a baby nursing. And it's just like, if that's what Christianity is doing, that the Christian men are thinking this is dirty to see a baby breastfeeding,
Yeah.
like we have truly messed up sexuality. And that's why I called the book, like, we're set up to fail. You can't look at the most beautiful thing in the world without making it into a joke or something. And I mentioned before, even as a Christian, I went to a nudist colony several times, not again to try to become a nudist. I was just trying to understand, what are we doing to our bodies, like the way we see it. And I remember one of the first times I ever went, and it's not sexual, you know, and sometimes it's like just older people. You're like, put your clothes back on, please. But you know, you go in there, and you're seeing people just swimming around and walking around naked. It's just like, it's like a whole camp. People live there. You know, dozens of people live there year round. And I remember the first time, like I went there, and there was some friends. We were playing tennis for a while, and it was just like there was nothing sexual about it. I mean, like zero. And I remember thinking, what the hell have we done to our psychology of the body that we
You
can't
know what?
appreciate normal human beauty? It's so messed up.
It is messed up. And I remember reading something that in cultures where women are told to cover up completely, it doesn't lower the amount of SA in that culture. Like, as a matter of fact, in those cultures where women are seen as, women's bodies are seen as something, you know, yeah, a secret or it's dirty or whatever, to think about it, those cultures like tend to have more SA, right? They objectify women.
Yeah.
They see them as something that needs to be covered. So I will say though, I've also become friends with like some Muslim people, and they have also told me on the flip side of it, like there's also a healthy way that they view things in a different aspect, but just knowing that with the cultural thing, that it doesn't lower the amount of those instances from happening, you know.
I think the Duggar boys are a case in point.
Right. Yeah. Now a second son, right, has, I forget what the headline was. I was just like, oh my goodness, makes sense. I didn't even read the whole thing, but I saw it.
Yeah. But
something else that stuck out to me was that whole naturalism, or whatever I guess it's called, in our Christian circles. I don't know. I don't know if your church was like that too, very holistic. Everything should be like natural sort of thing to an extent. Like the essential oils was a really big thing.
Yep.
In the Christian circles that I was in. And I remember thinking, this is a multi-level marketing scheme. Like, and that was actually one of the things that started to make me question how, how I saw those women and their beliefs and stuff too. Like, I respected them very much so, but then they would kind of get caught up in some like multi-level marketing schemes and other things that I was like, you know, I don't know if I can trust you as much anymore. I don't know. But something about that with the essential oils, I also suffer really, really bad from migraines, right? I have to take a shot once a month, and on top of it, then I have like a rescue medication for my migraines. And I had gotten on medication prior to going to China. And when I taught in China, I met this girl who, she was like in the Hebrew roots movement, right? And they're also very, very into the like natural, holistic stuff. Yep. And she was like, you know, you shouldn't be, you know, putting those pharmaceuticals in your body and all this and everything. And I like stupidly listened to her. And she was like trying to tell me like pan away on the back of your neck. And I mean, it helped a little, but I mean, I was getting migraines like 2 to 3 times a week. The fact that I went off of medication, you know, because of this idea that, you know, there's this distrust of, I guess, science and all of that is kind of what made that pervasive in the church. I don't know. But that was another way that religion kind of indirectly affected my body. So yeah, that was an interesting thing.
That sounds awful. I'm so very sorry that that's been such a long-term struggle. I get migraines sometimes, but it's not nothing like that. I can definitely understand how hard it would be though to have that all the time, and I'm so very sorry. That's crazy. And yeah, there's so many ways in which that multi-level marketing thing. I will admit, I think that I love when you said that, because my immediate thought was the essential oils are that. They are a multi-level marketing scheme.
Yeah,
but Christianity is a multi-level marketing scheme.
I know. I kind of started to see that parallel a little bit that is one of the things that started to get me thinking, is this, if they're being sold this, if they can be sold this, how much can I trust their, like, I don't know, their judgment on things? Because I remember I'd be in the women's Bible study group with them, and I always had questions. And I'm very vocal about my questions. I don't hide it. And so I would be asking questions and everything, and they would kind of answer things. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't really fix it. That doesn't really answer it. but I would just trust, I would trust that these women, a lot of the women who were older than me and who had kind of like discipled me, mentored me, I would just trust that they knew what they were talking about. But once I realized that they would fall for kind of some other things like the Amber, I'm not going to go into it because I mean, I know people believe different things, and I'm not trying to like shame anybody for any practices or anything like that. But there were just some like pop culture things that they all kind of latched onto that I thought, you haven't really done any research on this. You're just kind of going, I don't know, getting on the bandwagon with it, and you're all kind of running with it. And
Yeah, or the research they did was very, very selective, where there was something
very, very selective, like on green.org or something, that like only, I know. Oh, the vaccination thing. That's another thing.
It's a
I
huge
didn't even think about that. But yeah, there's a big relationship there between the like fundamentalist circles and the anti-vax stuff, and COVID, and the like not wanting to mask, not wanting to stay separate or whatever in that whole thing. But I know I'm probably getting into a lot of topics that could offend people, so I'm sorry. But no, it was my sister-in-law, sister-in-laws and my mother-in-law actually are all anti-vax. And it's just one of those like pop culture things within the fundamentalist Christian circles where they don't trust science. So
yeah, it was interesting too to think about how much they didn't basically trust government at all until Trump, and then they're just like, do whatever the hell you want, Sean. You can just tear all the buildings down and reshape our entire country and redo our rewrite our history, whatever. Like somehow suddenly, because Trump's involved, the government's gonna become so trustworthy. Like, oh my goodness, you all are so gullible and so deceived. Oh.
That is insane to me. It really is insane. Like the same people who wouldn't mask up because he told them that it was a hoax, it's like now he's, trying to potentially run for a third term, and he's started this war and all this stuff, and they're just right along with him. And they called Democrats sheep. Like, okay, I'm not necessarily Democrat or Republican. I consider myself more of a moderate, but that just is crazy to me that it does seem very much like they've completely thrown all of that reasoning out of the window for just the pop culture that the church creates such an echo chamber that these like pervasive beliefs, whether they're founded or not in any sort of reality, they just echo back and forth, and people take it as canon,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we are off topic a little bit, but I think there's the thing that maybe connects them all to me is just that Christianity just distorts everything. It just distorts everything, and its tentacles will go to it'll go into how you see your body. It'll go into how you see science. It's just an endless mess, and my heart breaks because to me it exposes the fact that now that we know that this is mythology, then it's like, well, what are we doing? What's going on? This is basically simply at the core of it. It's just more of what we were doing 100,000 years ago, which is total tribalism. We are all just tribal. We are more animistic and more tribal than we think. We've got our little devices and our computers and our AI, and we think we're so sophisticated. We are as tribal and animistic as everybody else. And this is just
the algorithms are funneling us more and more into our own circular thinking. I think a lot about how the algorithms of social media are very much like the echo chambers of the church, where you're always getting the same kind of feedback, the same input or whatever, just like in the church, where you had that same social circle, close-knit social circle, and so you were always hearing the same sort of things. The algorithm is doing that on a much, much bigger scale now. So that is really scary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I just appreciate again so much you're sharing this, and I just want to mention I had a bunch of things I was going to share that I didn't get to. So some of the things that I'll get to maybe in a future episode, they might be, again, since this is obviously a topic and in a general sense it's on your heart. When I do get a chance to share some of these things, I'll try to come up with some creative way to do it, or we might do just another part 2 of the same title. But if you do feel like some of the things we share on the next one, sort of ring a bell and bring a response, please feel free to jump back in. You're very welcome at any point. And there's just a lot. If I can just, and I'm going to just read through a couple just to mention these in the shell if you want to respond to any of these, and then I'll let you drop, and then I'll wrap us up for the tonight. But and on that note, if anybody wanted to jump in, I'm going to wrap up in just like 5 minutes because we're at 2 hours. But please feel free to keep an eye out for the next one. We'll do it again. But I think some people deal with stomach knots, indigestion stuff, nausea. Again, I'm not trying to say don't go to the doctor. Some of these may have totally different reasons. But I'm just saying, in general, I think some of us, our stomachs were in knots because we had so much anxiety from the guilt and so forth. Some of us had nausea. Maybe your appetite was disrupted. Certainly, a lot of us had dread in our hearts or feeling sick before church because we were thinking, something's going to basically make us feel really upset. A lot of people probably had numbness and disassociation, being disconnected from your body, like we touched on a little bit. I've mentioned this before, but a lot of people have difficulty relaxing, including physically relaxing. You have a hard time because you feel so driven to produce, do something for the kingdom. You can rest when you die. I mean, it's very, very clear, even in is it Hebrews, you work hard to enter into rest. You work hard to enter into the promised land. The rest that comes follows hard work. And I think a lot of people would say that they just, all these things just came sort of in and out like a revolving door, their lives at different times. But overall, it's real. And when you, even just some of the more benign things, like just being forced to smile all the time, that's not like a sickness or anything you think you have to go to the doctor for. But when you're forced to smile and pressured to smile and be a happy, smiley person all the time, what is it? Happy, shiny people. When you're forced to do all that stuff, and you're forced to take all of your emotions to God, and maybe you feel like you shouldn't cry at certain times, that you should just buck up and freeze your emotions and just give it over to God. We're all going through these cycles of basically repression, and I wouldn't be surprised if some people had different issues with sexuality, again tied to their cycles of shame, because when you have this intensity followed by the secrecy followed by the compulsion that you have, and then the self-loathing that happens, oh God, I masturbated again, I'm so built bad. And you just with all these cycles of falling and being restored and guilty and shameful, and I hope nobody finds out. Your body is like a long-term battleground. Like, you're gonna, at some point, something's gonna happen, something's gonna snap. Your body's gonna tell you, I don't feel safe in this cycle. This is messing me up. And anyway, we'll go on to some of those in more detail in the next one. But I'm so glad that people, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to come back to some of those topics, and instead of people just jumping and share their stories. People's stories are certainly much more important than any notes I bring. So I appreciate everybody, and especially you, Shelba. Do you have any comments on what I just shared, or anything else to wrap us up?
Something you had said about stomach knots just brought up another quick thought. My pastor, he just struck me as a very fire and brimstone kind of guy, right? Just put a lot of stress probably on his kids. And I know I think several of his children had issues with stomach ulcers and stuff like that, or just extreme anxiety, I think, because it's like you could just see it in their faces. But I remember specifically one guy saying he was having stomach ulcers and anxiety problems and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I wonder if it's tied to how much pressure is put on you. But yeah, just the stomach ulcer thing, or the stomach knots, that stuck out to me when you said that because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting in a different sense, but I guess a little related. I remember a girl that I grew up with at a church. She and I were always like the people that we knew the Bible backwards and forwards. We knew all these verses we'd memorized, and eventually her dad literally, like, they went to a different church where he became a pastor, so I didn't see them as much. But we kept in touch sporadically over the years. Our families did, and I heard later she was like so sexually repressed. This girl that she eventually, at like age 16 or 17, she wanted to marry this guy so bad that she'd met, and probably more than anything just for the sake of being physically active. And my mom was telling me that was in touch with this girl's parents, and she said that they had to let her get married because she literally, like, gave them an ultimatum and said, "Mom and Dad, if you don't let me get married, I promise you I will go get pregnant by this guy." And you just think, this girl is living in like a powder keg of explosive feelings, both in terms of sexuality, but also the hyper control, like, you do it our way, or you're disobeying God, and just so much intensity. And like, when you think about living your life under that powder keg for so long, of course some bad shit's going to happen,
Yeah.
and to think that we gladly do this to our kids in the name of God is bizarre. Like, kids need safety and peace and calm and respect and autonomy, and we go the opposite direction so much under the guise of we're in charge, and we're going to keep you in the straight and narrow. And in the goal to keep people in the straight and narrow, you literally drive them into the hands of what you were trying to avoid. And like the Duggars again, I am sure that the Duggar parents probably would say, we would never want our boys to do this. This is horrible.
Right.
This is just like the complete opposite of what we were going for. But in aiming for the complete opposite of it, but yet doing all this repression and making it a powder keg sexually, they drove their boys into sexual addiction. It's like, this is
Yeah.
not an accident. And there may be more examples coming in families like this that come out to the public, where it's like, come on, you got to notice there's a pattern here. You made
Yeah.
this such a secret, and the goal for me is, like, when you bring secrets into the light, they lose their power. And that relates to sexuality, it relates to the origins of Christianity. For goodness sake, put it out on the table and let people have some autonomy, full information, a sense of you're vested in this, and you need to understand the dynamics of psychology and mind control and manipulation and indoctrination and propaganda. And when you really just you get it out there, you're like, wow, like, there's so much here that I have been manipulated into, whether religion in general or sexuality. And you're just like, I think I'm acting out of my free will to pursue what I want, but I'm not. I'm being driven by these compulsions because of the rules and the craziness of it all. And for so many of us, the healing is often not just escaping Christianity, but realizing both what it did to us, but also the ways it made us have so many compulsions, so many desires to escape the shackles, that our desire to escape the shackles and supposedly get freedom is itself a new prison. You want to have all these experiences and do all these things to finally mitigate, just swing that pendulum over. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're actually in a new prison. You don't think of it. You think you escape Christianity, but you're now in a different prison. And we all do that. We all do that. But maybe we do it with fundamentalism. We're like, I'm now an atheist. I'm free from Christianity. And if you don't agree with me as to be an atheist, you're a complete idiot. And now I'm now an atheist fundamentalist. It's just like, come on, we got to stop swinging this pendulum and figure out what's actually healthy. And so
Yeah.
many of us do it. We fall in these traps. I do it. I'm sure I'm not blaming anybody else, but at a certain point, you got to step back and dig into the psychology of how did this affect us, and in
Well,
what
I
ways
think
am I still missing and wearing blinders?
I think when you stigmatize and make it taboo, even healthy sexuality, when you make even that taboo, it basically means, well, everything's taboo now. So the things that, really are unhealthy, they're right up there with the things that are healthy in your brain or something. I think it was when I was deconstructing the Southern Baptist, that was when the Southern Baptist Convention released that they had, or there was news headlines that the Southern Baptist Convention had covered up like hundreds of cases of sexual assault in like the past 10 years. Do you remember that coming out?
I do, very much so. Yeah, it was awful.
I think that was like right in the middle of my deconstruction. And I was like, yeah, that also puts another nail in the coffin for me. Just to know how much baloney it all is, that it does lead to an unhealthy, it also just leads us to like really constantly be introspective and shaming and judging ourselves to the point where it's almost like we're constantly thinking about our own selves. And that would be, I would notice that when we would be doing our college and career group, whenever the college kids would be asking for prayers, it like 9 times out of 10, it was all about like them in their own headspace and their struggles with, temptations and things like that. So yeah, it all puts you in that headspace where you're constantly just introspective to an unhealthy degree and constantly shamed about even normal sexual healthy behavior.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's amazing the way we shoot ourselves in the foot with all this stuff. But we definitely could go on for a while, but I know we've gone on for over 2 hours here, but I'll wrap us up. But Shell, thank you so much for joining us. Please jump in for the next one. We'll be doing a lot more of this stuff, and hopefully some of the topics again will really be an encouragement to us all as we try to think deeply about this. But thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tim. Have a good night.
Thanks, Shell. You too. Well, I'm going to read a few quick comments here, and we'll wrap up. Cold Iron Gaming was saying hi, Shell. Alex saying that must have been a hard, a hard journey or hard story. Yep, Shell, breastfeeding the car to keep men from stumbling is wild. It is. It's insane. It's just so ridiculous for normal. It's important to normalize these things, and we stigmatize them. You said Christianity is mythology, but isn't it possible Jesus may have said much the same thing as his religion was Judaism, presumably? Yeah, but that doesn't fix it. Judaism is based on mythology. It's based on the ancient Canaanite El Elyon, high god, and the demigods, Baal and Yahweh. So whether it's based on Judaism or Christianity or whatever, it's all variations on the same theme. It's all people coming up with stuff and saying our God's the real one. No, our God is. No, our God is. And then they evolve and they merge and they have a wife, but then they don't. They take it out. Yahweh has an Asherah, and then he doesn't. It's all mythology. Judaism, going back to Judaism, doesn't make it better. It makes it in many ways worse. Judaism is obviously based on the Old Testament, which includes, the injunction to do genocide and land theft and slavery and child brides and stoning and yada 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 and genital mutilation. When you mix horrible ideas with mythology, it's just digging the hole deeper, So yeah, it's all variations on the same theme. Christianity, of course, merges it extensively with Zoroastrianism, as well as Greco-Roman mystery cults. But yeah, it's all a mess. Alex, great topics. Yeah, absolutely. And Shannon, we'll wrap up with your comment here. My son and his friends in the backyard, so I wouldn't want to call in right now, but I have my own horror stories around sexuality. I'm so very sorry, Shannon. And we will be bringing up some of these topics again from different perspectives. But definitely, I hope that we are able to, have a chance where you can share whatever's in your heart when the time is right. But I'm doing a lot of these call-in shows, so please do keep an eye on the topics. And Noel there in Delaware. And just want to mention a couple last things here. We'll wrap up. Number one, I'm so honored that on Monday morning, I'll be doing an interview with the one and only Seth Andrews, the Thinking Atheist channel. It's his channel. And a few other comments, I'll read in 1 second. But Seth Andrews is going to be coming on 10:30 in the morning on this Monday morning. So I'm very excited. Please jump in if you can with your comments and just to support him being there. That's a big deal for me. He's a hero of mine and a lot of other people. Also, tomorrow, I'll be doing probably something smaller in the morning. Then I'm being interviewed somewhere else. During the daytime, it won't be live streamed, so I won't share it right away, but I'll eventually be able to cross-post it. And then, but tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing an interview with Andrew Jasko. He's been on the channel a long time ago. He's coming back. He's an amazing man, amazing therapist, and looking forward very much to having him back. But then again, Monday, 10:30, interviewing Seth Andrews. I'm doing a back-to-back here, back-to-back actually. 1 p.m. on Monday, I'm interviewing someone from Instagram, Mariah. Mariah is a Christian, but she is a heavily deconstructed Christian who focuses a lot on what it means to raise your children without the toxicity of Christianity's worst parts. So interesting topics that we'll talk about with her. She's got a great Instagram channel. And then I'm also bringing back Ricky Johnson. He and his son came on years ago, but Ricky's going to come on later in the day on Monday. So it's a lot. It'll be 3 interviews back to back on Monday, doing 2 interviews back to back on Tuesday, and potentially some live streams like this in the mix if I can keep going. But I just want to say thank you all so much for your support of this channel. And I feel like some of the things I'm doing are going to hopefully bring some attention to it, at least short term. Hopefully, people jumping in to see Seth Andrews. The interview that I'm being interviewed by somebody who's a Christian, actually, a guy named Devin. But Devin Corvington has a channel, and he's going to interview me on his channel. He's a Christian, but he interviews people of various faith. He interviews Buddhists and so forth. But I'm going to be on his channel, and again, he's going to send me the video, so I'll be able to post it here. You can watch it here or watch it on his channel. But I appreciate so much, just the publicity, because it helps. Every little bit helps. But also for anyone that can support this channel directly, please do either, if you can, watch, comment, like, subscribe, share the videos, tell other people to watch. And if you can support me directly, all the links to do so are beneath this video. And a few last comments, and then we'll say goodnight. Mark says, when even healthy sex is taboo, that brings unhealthy things up on the same level. Yeah, absolutely. And Noel saying, or anyone else, I'd love to connect more and talk further on these topics. Shannon says, Noel, love your sharing. Yeah, absolutely. Noel's got so many good insights and stories to share. I don't like Facebook the least, but I felt like it'd be lovely to talk to you. Absolutely. And yes, Noel, I'll be live with Seth Andrews. So if anyone has comments or questions, I'll have my own questions, and I don't know that he's got more than, an hour and a half to talk. So I'm not sure how much time I'll have, but, I will try to get to the comments at least at the very end of that. So please do jump in if you can. And either way, I would love to have some support for that one, because I don't get someone that I consider a celebrity that often. I've been trying to. I literally send letters to celebrities like movie stars that I know are atheists. I send notes to Ricky Gervais. I send notes to other people that you just like, oh my goodness, this will be great to have someone like that on my channel. I write them physical snail mail letters and just to their agents and say, hey, would this person love to come on? And by and large, it doesn't really go anywhere. But occasionally I get an answer that just says they're too busy. But most of the time, I don't even get an answer. But there's a Scottish comedian that's hilarious, and I've tried to get him on, but I couldn't work. But if I'll have to keep working on that. A Scottish atheist, but a comedian. He's great. But anyway, we'll get there. But for me, Seth Andrews is a big deal. He's a celebrity in his own right, and I can't wait to have him on and see hopefully what we talk about there. But thank you so much for being a part of my life. I really appreciate your support for this channel one way or another. Yeah, Shannon says, yeah, Ricky Gervais is hilarious. He is awesome. And it's funny, when I first watched the UK office, it took a minute to get used to it, because I went with the US office first, and then realizing that it was a copy, it was an offshoot of the UK office. Like, really? There's an original? And I'm not used to that British humor in the same way. And it took a minute, but eventually I got to the point where I'm like, I think I almost like the British version better, but they're not really the same. They're very different animals. But he was great in the office. He's great in his other stuff, and he's certainly great with his atheism conversation. So he's a hero. But I'll keep trying. I'll keep sending him letters, and one of these days he'll respond, hopefully. But we'll get there. Little growths every week, every month add up. And again, I appreciate so much you being willing to be part of my community. Thank you for the great ideas. I literally have about 25 to 30 ideas for live streams just based on what you all shared tonight. Just apart from my ideas, what I took directly from what you said, I have 25 to 30 new ideas for different live streams. Amazing. I love it. I learned so much. I have so much creativity that you all shoot my way, and it's a rich blessing. So thank you all for being my friends and my family. Have a great night. I will see you all at some point tomorrow, hopefully, and talk to you soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.